It's about 10:15. I just got back from doing some errands from CVS and Food Lion. Two things are happening today. First, the new version of Live 12, is available for me to download. So I'm going to do that. And second, I'm doing my Sweetbriar presentation this evening. Last night, I heard the long freight train go by, and I reflexively checked the time. So I'm guessing that I'm going to start doing that more often, really pay attention to when that train comes by. Last night, it rolled through at about 11 o'clock. Just put Live 12 on the laptop. Let's see what the demo that they put in sounds like.
What I need couldn't get here faster. Chase my dreams just to wake up after. Running back, time wasted. Time ahead, one after one. So yellow glass, all my patience, never left to know.
I got the same lunch today, and I saw some other people that got the salad, which looks like this shrimp salad, that I don't know if I just read the description wrong or not when I said that I didn't want it, but it looks really good, and I'm now jealous. I need more lentils in my life because these are amazing. It's really gorgeous out, so I'm going to take a break. I've practiced my presentation and speech about 5 times so far this morning. I'm going to take a break and just walk around. There is a frog here that is going to town noise-wise at this water sculpture. I just spent the past couple of hours going over some Live 12 tutorials and messing around a little bit in Live 12. It's a little daunting. There's a lot to it, but that means that it has a lot of flexibility and has a lot of capabilities, and I'm pretty excited to explore it and get more familiar with it. It definitely takes some of the stuff I was going to do in Live 11 and reshapes it a little bit. Some of the new features are pretty compelling. So I'm looking forward to exploring that more, finding new ways to get the second movement to happen in the way that I want to. It's about 4:30 right now, so I've got an hour and a half before I need to meet up with the person that's in charge of the event for dinner before going over to Sweetbriar. So I think I'm going to practice the presentation a few more times and then just put myself into a state of mind to be ready for the presentation. Here's a quick run through the slide deck, just so you have an idea of what's going to happen. There you go. That'll be 20 minutes worth of stuff. Just a quick note to myself more than anything else that right now it's about 22:53 and the freight train, the long freight train for the evening is going through. The other night it was also around 2300, 11 o'clock. So if I'm going to go out and record, I think the window of time to do it is to really go out sometime between 10:15 in case it comes early like it did the night that I did it, and 11 o'clock. The talk at Sweetbriar went really well. I went after Leslie, a painter who's in her 70s, that had a really fascinating history that she went through that informed her art. She lived in Iran for a while. She was a hippie growing up and also had some very important touch points that defined who she was as a creative, particularly as a woman growing up in the 60s and 70s. My presentation, I practiced a lot and got to a point where I had it memorized. So it was pretty easy for me to just speak and be comfortable with what I was saying. I think that it was received pretty well. I had a few people compliment me on my work and also the dynamic way that I talked. Leslie and I also, when we fielded questions, the energy that we had bouncing off of each other for responses to those questions that were brought to both of us, I think was really positive, particularly at the end when we were both like, be yourselves and go out and be dreamers and understand how important it is if you have that creative itch to go chase that and potentially change that later on, but don't be afraid to fail. The person in charge, Erica, who we got to meet her and her husband, Adam, it was great to get to know them and get some background on who they were, who happened to live in Portland for a while and lives in the same block as my brother, actually, before they came to Sweetbriar, and get some background on Sweetbriar College itself. Overall, it was a very successful evening, and I'm very glad that I did it. Now that the presentation is over, which has been weighing on my brain for the past couple of days, I can really focus my energy back on my work and get into the second movement of Sonic Glass. The nice thing about this residency is that there's a lot of freedom to pivot and work on things and do things that you might not expect. The fact that we have here that sort of freedom to just let the muse take us where it wants to eases some of the pressure that I have in my brain to give myself room to breathe as it relates to this project. It's true that I've got a deadline for this. I really want to come away from this having that done as much as possible so that I can give it to Jackie, but also I'm allowing myself to have some creative freedom to say, you know what? If I have a day or an afternoon where it's not really going the way that I want to, and I want to go back and look at the thing that I wrote for Felicity, or maybe move ahead and take a look at the freight trains, something to just at least keep the creative juices flowing, then there's nothing wrong with that. It already feels like so much time has gone by, but at the same time, I also feel like I have a lot of time left. And after this presentation and the success of it, everything that's happened, the positive reception to all of the people that have been here, both new and old, I still remain in very high energy and motivation to just get a lot of work done. And that feels great. It's about 9:30. The sky is very overcast and the air feels crisp. I'm feeling pretty invigorated after having done that salon talk last night at Sweetbriar. I had a good level of engagement both with the people at Sweetbriar and people here at the VCCA. Even this morning, one of the fellows that went to my presentation really resonated with my work. It's nice to be able to get that perspective from people that I don't know and also creatives in a parallel adjacent field as opposed to other musicians. I'm anticipating that most of my day is going to be spent in Ableton Live. There is that weekly VCCA staff apple cider thing that's going to be happening at 4:30. Apparently there's some sort of special guest today for the cider, either a former staff member with the VCCA or a former fellow. I'm not quite sure, but I'm looking forward to engaging more with the community here. I ended up last night after coming back from the talk sitting down in a common area and interacting with two of the fellows for a good hour, just talking about a wide range of subjects between politics and music and experiences and grief and tragedy and all that. And it was really, really nice. Hey, Pooch. How's it going, dog? Egg salad today with some walnuts, apples and peanut butter, cucumber. It's a little after 2:30. I thought I'd pop in just to say that today took a bit of a turn. I didn't really get a lot of creative stuff done or work on live, but I have, because of a couple of email newsletters that I got, applied to or started to apply to about 3 to 4 different grant applications or performance applications for my work. It's one of those things where when I first became a freelancer and I subscribed to more newsletters about opportunities, I applied to so many things. I've gotten plenty of rejections, but I've also gotten plenty of recognition at the same time. And for it to have happened so immediately makes me still have this attitude that I should just be applying to as many things as possible. Related to that, I also discovered that one of the 2 compositions that I applied to for New Music on the Bayou this year and got in. It's funny because one of the works that I applied with was my most recent piano trio that I wrote for Longleash, and I'm really happy with that work and want to explore more works of that sort of nature. That's not the one that got in. The other one is a quick, lighthearted percussion duet that I wrote in roughly a week and a half that was intended to be performed by a couple of students, but that never ended up happening. So it's been sitting on a shelf, and I thought, might as well see if I can get any traction on it, and it's the one that got in. I think it's further proof that I need to embrace all aspects of my creative voice and not be afraid to write music that has no other real purpose other than just to be cool and fun. I think it's also indicative that because of my familiarity with percussion, both marching and concert, that I shouldn't be afraid to write more percussion literature in general. So I think I want to start leaning on that more. I still want to challenge myself to do other works and get more familiar with different kinds of ensembles and instruments, but there's nothing wrong with me going back to things that I know how to do well and will resonate with people because I know how to do it well. How's it going, dog? Again? Hi. Aren't you a cutie? The tutorial for this one module in Live is 13 minutes long and it is dense. Here's the introductory sentence.
MELD is an MPE-enabled synthesizer with a dual oscillator setup and a robust modulation matrix capable of crafting an enormous variety of sounds.
It's a little after 11 p.m., and I feel like I had a pretty productive evening. I decided that I wanted to go through a few of the Live 12 tutorials that were relevant to how I knew that I wanted to use it for this work. And going through it multiple times, every time that I went through it, there was more that I understood and the more I could make more natural. So I think that once I start to try to construct and use those modules, it'll be that much easier because I've got that background and then I can always re-reference those tutorials again. The other thing I ended up doing was for that piece that got into New Music on the Bayou, I reformatted the parts to be a little bit more performer friendly. Particularly for the 2 marimbas, I decided to make the parts tabloid landscape on the assumption that they would maybe want to still physically print out the music as opposed to using a tablet, because sometimes for percussionists, having tablets on the other side of the bars, the music is still really small. So I figured they were still going to print out physical parts. But I did also put in a note that said, if you are reading off of tablets or you prefer it to generally be in letter size portrait instead, then just reach out to me and I'll make some PDFs. I'll also say that the Apple Cider Social Plus dinner was incredibly lively today. The person that was a special guest is somebody who was a housekeeper, I guess, but did more than just housekeeping for a really long time. She retired in 2009, and today she is 91 years old. And there are multiple residents that had been around while she was still working here, even as early as the 80s and 90s when she first started. So seeing that sense of community and to hear stories about her and her husband being very core people to the VCCA and somebody who is still relevant to those people now was really special. And I'm glad that I got to see it as a first-time resident. I also had other people that took the time to come up to me to say that they really enjoyed my Sweetbriar presentation and the work. They had some questions about the musical process and also the video that went along with it, how I made it, the kind of software that I used, that sort of stuff. And that made me feel pretty great too. So overall, the day was not the sort of direction I thought was going to go. I didn't write really any music. I still felt very productive and still felt very invigorated and stimulated and supported in a way that this community supports all of each other. That feels like an overall success. It's about 9:30. clear skies compared to yesterday. No rain on the forecast. It's supposed to get up into the mid 60s. Hey squirrel, how's it going? I'm not sure why, but most mornings I've had this thing where I wake up around 7 a.m. for no real reason. It's been pretty consistent though. I wonder if it's related to when the sun comes up and my room gets lighter. I'm usually able to fall back asleep. Today the goal is do a lot of stuff in live, try to shape this piece that I'm writing around the bees. I'm also at this point where I have to start thinking about doing laundry, which they don't want you to do during the day because housekeeping uses laundry all the time since they're constantly cleaning out the residences. So maybe in the evening I'll try to do work back at the actual residence as opposed to my studio and just be doing laundry at the same time. We'll see what happens. Nice little ladybug chilling out on my lunch table. So I'm running into this interesting logistical challenge as it relates to how I want to approach the second movement. This is the first movement that I did entirely in Reaper, and the first movement was bookended by this footstep sound. So a couple of important aspects of this footstep sound is that the rate that I had it play back for fast paid forward was slower than its normal speed. It's 85% speed as opposed to 100%. And also I have a reverb that I applied to it through here. So for Through the Sun and Glass, to link all the movements together, I decided that I wanted to use the footsteps to bookend all of the movements. Simple enough, right? The problem is that I was hoping that I could do all of Friends Not Foes all entirely in live. And I figured, oh, okay, live has the ability to import samples. I can just import the footstep sample and do the same thing. I can change the rate of the sample, put it into the timeline to manipulate the gain and all that, and frame it both in the beginning and the end in the same way I did the other thing. The problem is that warping samples in live is dealt with very differently than a DAW. In this context, here it is at regular speed, and if I want to change the speed, unless there's something I'm missing, I have to say that I want to warp it. And when I warp it, it adds all of these markers here because it's assuming that I'm trying to link this to a particular tempo and a particular kind of drum beat. Right now, it's trying to match this to go with this. Now, it's not doing it very successfully because these warp markers are not well aligned to what this tempo is, but I don't really have the ability to say, oh, okay, I just want you to play this sample. Let me turn this off. I just want you to play this sample at a slightly slower rate or a slightly larger rate overall as a background that has nothing to do with the beat. I think that what this means is I am going to have to still use Reaper to set up the footsteps and all the B samples in the way that I want. And then just use live for the synthesized music that provides the backdrop for the acoustic sounds I'm trying to do. Dinner was pot roast, mashed potatoes, assorted vegetables, and a chocolate mousse pie that was quite tasty. Had a lively conversation at dinner with some people that I had met already and are very familiar with. I just threw a bunch of laundry in because I'm running out of clean laundry. So I'm not going to go back to the studio anytime soon, but I think I am going to try to do some work here. I was on a roll when I got in before dinner and started to really shape what I wanted to do with the material both in live and in Reaper. The stuff that I'm doing in live right now I see as a first draft. Like, I like the material a lot, but I want there to be more to what I'm doing right now. Once I get a framework up of both the live stuff and the Reaper stuff, the samples, then I bet I'm going to be making a bunch of changes to the live stuff, especially as I get more familiar with the capabilities of live that I'm not even coming close to tapping into. But I'm very encouraged and think that it's going to be a productive evening. It's a little before 9:30. still in the residence. Ended up not getting any work done because I went out and there was a lively social group, and I just ended up joining the social group and talking to some pretty great people. But most of them have gone to bed now. So I'm going to try to do some work now. I still have laundry that needs to dry. So good opportunity to just chill out in the room, do some work. When I'm done with that, I'm going to clean this place, make sure the floors are all clear because the housekeeping is going to be coming in tomorrow and vacuuming and taking all my dirty linens. And then that'll be the end of the night.